It is a beautiful day today. I want to also express my appreciation for Justice Willocks asking me to be the master of ceremony for this program. I say that in advance because you know what's going to happen from here on out, okay? I am going to behave myself this morning. I have a theme that I'm going to abide by. Truthfulness is the foundation of all human virtue. So first, let me welcome everybody from St. John, from St. Thomas, from Christiansted, from the Caribbean, from the United States of America, from all over the world to Frederiksted, Freedom City. And we're going to begin with the program right now with postings of the colors. We're now going to have the National Anthem and the Virgin Islands March by the Superior Court Rising Star Youth Steel Orchestra. I'd like to, at this point, call Reverend Attorney Shelley King Gaddy up to the podium for the invocation.
Grace and peace, my brothers and sisters. Let us pray. O most merciful and gracious God, our Father, the God of our forefathers, the creator of us all. Father, we thank you for bringing us here today for such a time as this. And we ask, oh God, that you would bless all that will happen here in this investiture ceremony for the Associate Justice, Harold W.L. Willocks. And Father, as we ask your blessings upon this ceremony, we ask, oh God, that you would continue to bless him in this journey of justice that he's been on for some time. Father, we ask that you would cause him to walk humbly, love mercy, act justly, granting to him even greater understanding, because in all of our getting, we should always get understanding. But even more, oh God, we ask that you grant him wisdom beyond anything he's ever known, that wisdom that Solomon requested. The greatest gift of all is wisdom. And we ask that as he moves along this journey called justice, that he would do so in administering justice with integrity, with compassion, humility, and mercy. And as you grant to each of us during this service, cause us to continue to hold him uprightly and hold one another as we continue to serve the people, your people, in this special place called the United States Virgin Islands. In the name of my Lord and Savior, Jesus the Christ, amen.
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 Have a seat. At this time, I have to first apologize in advance because I want to acknowledge all the dignitaries and prominent people, but if I go through the list, we'll be here by noontime, and we ain't going to do that. So let me, if I may, and I apologize, looking at all the people behind me, all the people in front of me, I want to acknowledge the governor, the lieutenant governor, the whole executive branch. I want to acknowledge the District Court of the United States, its judges and magistrate judges. I ain't got there yet. See, man, already I knew I was going to piss off some people. But anyway, let me first, because I'm told, I want to acknowledge the legislative branch. Okay? Please forgive me if I ignore anybody else out there. I want to acknowledge all the judges in the Superior Court, the Supreme Court, all the dignitaries, the delegates, and as I go forward, if I miss you, blame me. I've already asked God for forgiveness, but we're moving on. At this time, I'd like to call the Honorable Reese Hodge, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Governor Bryan, Lieutenant Governor Roach, Senate President Francis, and members of the 35th Legislature present, Justices of the Supreme Court, judges and magistrate judges of the Superior Court, judges and magistrate judges of the District Court present, Attorney General Rear, U.S. Attorney Smith, and members of the Virgin Islands Bar Association and officers who were present, and all other distinguished guests, family, and friends, welcome. For those of you who may not know me, I am Reese S. Hodge, Chief Justice of the Virgin Islands. It is my honor and privilege to welcome all of you to the investiture ceremony of the Honorable Harold W.L. Willocks, Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the Virgin Islands. One of my favorite duties as Chief Justice is to welcome and congratulate new and elevated judicial officers. But today's investiture is unique because it marks the very first time in 18 years since the establishment of the Supreme Court that myself, or Justice Maria Cabret, and Ive Arlington Swan have had the honor to welcome a colleague. Justice Willocks is the fourth Justice of the Supreme Court of the Virgin Islands, not just the fourth Justice of the current court, but the fourth Justice ever. This will also mark the first time that the oath of office for a Justice of the Supreme Court is administered by the Chief Justice. As all prior investitures of the original three justices were jointly conducted, with the oath administered by a judge of the Third Circuit Court of Appeals in December of 2006, and on reappointment by Chief Judge Emeritus Vaughn A. Hodge, serving as a designated Justice of the Supreme Court in the centennial year of 2017. There are many reasons to celebrate the appointment of Justice Willocks to the Supreme Court bench, which I and other speakers will share momentarily. But the three, soon to be four justices, sit in this official session not just to congratulate Justice Willocks on a personal achievement, but also to acknowledge an important and historic history in the history of the judicial branch of the Virgin Islands. The three justices currently before you were confirmed on by the 26th Legislature on October 27, 2006. A baby born on that day 18 years ago is now eligible to vote and could have voted last Tuesday and serve in the military, and has experienced no government in his or her life besides the one we have now, three separate co-equal branches of government run by Virgin Islanders who were elected or appointed by Virgin Islanders. To this generation of Virgin Islands and those generations that come after, it is simply a given that the Governor of the Virgin Islands nominates Virgin Islanders to serve as Justices of the Supreme Court of the Virgin Islands with the advice and consent of the legislature. That, of course, was not always the case. For nearly 90 years after the transfer of sovereignty to the United States, there was no such thing as the Supreme Court of the Virgin Islands. During that lengthy period, the role currently filled by the Supreme Court of the Virgin Islands was effectively filled by the United States Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit, which, in addition to handling federal appeals, had jurisdiction over all appeals arising from the Virgin Islands, even those involving pure questions of territorial law. The people of the Virgin Islands actively sought control of their own court system, and Congress authorized the legislature to establish a local Supreme Court in 1984. but it was not until 20 years later that Governor Charles Turnbull signed into law the bill that established the Supreme Court. Even then, it took 2 more years for the nomination and confirmation of the initial 3 justices. And the Supreme Court ultimately accepting jurisdiction on January 29th, 2007. That baby born after the establishment of the Virgin Islands Supreme Court never knew life under a system where the Virgin Islanders did not possess the final word on Virgin Islands law. One may wonder why that matters. After all, every judge, whether state, territorial, or federal, takes an oath to faithfully and impartially apply the law. But unlike physics or mathematics, law is not a discipline where there is an objective and unassailable correct answer to every possible question. Law is both a science and an art. We expect judges of all levels not just to possess the knowledge of the black letter law, but to have developed the requisite professional and life experiences to effectively stand in judgment of others. We want all our judges to know the communities they serve. In fact, the Virgin Islands Code requires that a person nominated to be a justice of the Supreme Court have been an active member of the Virgin Islands Bar Association, engaged in the active practice of law in the Virgin Islands for the 10 years preceding the nomination, as well as a bona fide resident of the Virgin Islands who maintained their domicile in the Virgin Islands for at least 10 years prior to nomination. The people of the Virgin Islands expect judges of the courts of the Virgin Islands to know our culture and way of life and appreciate how life in the Virgin Islands is both similar and different from life on the mainland United States. This is especially true for those who serve as justices of the Supreme Court, in whom are reposed the supreme judicial authority of the territory, and whose decisions are essentially the final word on matters of Virgin Islands law. It is for this reason that we celebrate the appointment of Justice Willocks to our Supreme Court. Justice Willocks is the son of the soil and a product of the public schools in St. Croix. He graduated from St. Croix Central High School and later Morgan State University and Antioch Law School. He began his life of service to the people of the Virgin Islands as a teacher on St. Croix, and after a brief time as a prosecutor. He then switched sides and became a territorial public defender in 1988. He handled hundreds of cases and ascended to the position of Chief Territorial Public Defender in just 4 years. From 2009 until the date of his elevation, that's 15 years, he served as a judge of the Superior Court of the Virgin Islands, which included terms as presiding judge and as administrative judge. But Justice Willocks is far more than just an accomplished lawyer and jurist. He is a distinguished scholar, having written over 20 books, including The Umbilical Cord, The History of the Virgin Islands, United States Virgin Islands, from pre-Columbian era to the present. That book is used as a textbook in many public and private schools and has even been cited as authority in several judicial opinions. He has also been a fixture in the Virgin Islands community for decades, not hesitating to assist with community organizations, especially those dealing with youth and mental and behavioral health issues. Justice Willocks not only possesses superior knowledge of the Virgin Islands law, but understands how that law impacts the community we all serve. I am confident that Justice Willocks will meet the challenges of his new position and continue to serve the people of the Virgin Islands with the same level of distinction and excellence that he has demonstrated throughout his career. My fellow justices and I look forward to serving with him as colleagues and hope for his continued success as a Supreme Court Justice. Thank you.
Thank you. That was beautiful. So as you feel this breeze blowing from the trade winds of Africa to the town of Frederiksted, and be aware of the significance of this moment, I'd just like to share one other attribute of Justice Willocks. Justice Willocks is known for his brevity and not his longevity. Having said that, my other comment is that we do have restrooms at the fort outside that are air conditioned, inside that are not. Don't ask me to explain that. And at this time, I'd like to bring to the podium my dear friend, but also the Associate Justice, Honorable Maria M. Cabret.
Good morning. Governor Albert Bryan, Jr., Lieutenant Governor Tregenza Roach, President of the 35th Legislature, Novelle Francis, other members of the 35th Legislature, Chief Justice Reese Hodge, Justice Swan, current and former judicial officers, distinguished guests, and friends, and the honoree today, Justice Willocks. Good morning. Today is a blessed, happy, and joyful day for all the Virgin Islands. For today, we celebrate the investiture of Harold Woodson Lauren Willocks as an Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the Virgin Islands. Thank you, Governor Bryan, for nominating the very best person for the job. And thank you, members of the 35th Legislature, for confirming him. And why is Justice Willocks the best person for the job? Well, the reasons are far too numerous for me to state, or for any person to state this morning. We would be here well into the afternoon. So I'm going to be very brief. Justice Willocks has a thoroughly thoughtful approach to the law and to its practical applications, not just for the now, but for the future. He is a caring, kind, compassionate individual who is widely respected and deeply admired, not only by the legal profession, but by all members of our Virgin Islands community. He possesses a sharp intellect. He is a stellar scholar, a historian. He is a published author. He is an experienced, skilled litigator who, as a lawyer, represented the most vulnerable of our society. He was a fabulous trial judge. He is a Virgin Islands cultural bearer and the Virgin Islands humanities scholar. And these, as I indicated earlier, are just a few of his achievements and his attributes. But above all, Justice Willocks, throughout his legal and judicial career, has been dedicated to the pursuit of fairness and justice, and has taken that pursuit beyond the courtroom into the community, as exemplified by his history of deep involvement in our community. Yes, his caring is demonstrated by his sharing. Unquestionably, Justice Willocks is one of the brightest shining stars of the Virgin Islands. To say I am happy and thrilled that Justice Willocks has joined the Supreme Court bench is an understatement, for I am simply overwhelmed with joy. Thank you, Justice Willocks, for agreeing to continue to serve our beloved people. And thank you, Yvette, for being his supremely supportive spouse and for sharing his time with us. Congratulations to you both and to your family. May God continue to bless you, and Justice Willocks, always remember, we love you. Thank you.
At this time, I would like to call to the podium the Honorable Arlington Swan.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I was told and I was admonished several times leading up to this event that I must be brief because of the number of speakers that will be speaking. Time does not allow for me to do my usual lengthy adulation. And that's a tall order. How do you encapsulate anything about Justice Harold Willocks and be brief? So I spend more time trying to be brief than on substance. And I finally came up with something that I hope will be brief and meet the time requirement. Here we go. And I must underscore the fact that for the first time, Justice Willocks is a Morganite, just like me. So we have two Morganites. So we have two Morganites now on the Supreme Court of the Virgin Islands, and thank you very much, Governor Brian, for putting on another Morganite. All right. Justice Harold Willocks, welcome to the appellate judicial practice of law. You will immediately discover that the appellate work is significantly different from trial work. But for a person of your towering intellect, the transition from one phase to the other will be easy. You have an intimate familiarity with all facets of what occurred at the trial level. Therefore, as you read the trial records and fathom what transpired in the trial court, your experience as a trial jurist will serve you well in your appellate work. As an accomplished author of note, you will not encounter any difficulty positing the issues for adjudication, but the task of discerning all pertinent issues in a case is tedious and time-consuming. The one problem that you will encounter is that from some, and I underscore some lawyers or attorneys that's appearing before us on their recalcitrance in failing to comply with court rules. Nonetheless, we anticipate, Justice Willocks, your erudite opinions with your signature cogent analysis. Lastly, with your long and illustrious career, you are now destined for enshrinement in the pantheon reserved for iconic Virgin Islands jurists. Attorney Justice Willocks, welcome to the Supreme Court. Thank you all.
I want to thank Judge Swan. He did a great job. So for all the others who will come after Judge Swan, he set a great example. But I want to also share some words of wisdom that Miles Davis told John Coltrane. In case any of you don't know who those two people are, John Coltrane, one of the greatest jazz musicians ever, and Miles probably second, if not the same. Any of you listen to jazz know that John Coltrane played his heart out. He was spiritually into his music, played and played. And one time he had a conversation with Miles about how difficult it was for him to stop playing. And Miles turned to him and said, all you gotta do is take the damn horn out of your mouth. So, with that introduction, I now bring up my friend, the Honorable Deborah Watson, the presiding judge.
Wow. Good morning, everyone. I am his friend. It's such a beautiful day, and I have such a difficult task following three justices to talk about my friend, our friend, the Honorable Harold W. L. Willocks. But first, I'm really here to bring warm greetings from the Superior Court of the Virgin Islands and the family of the Superior Court of the Virgin Islands. And I guess I should thank Justice Willocks for the invitation to speak at this auspicious and historical investiture. This is just so Harold, if you will, if you don't mind me calling you Harold. Look, to be in this setting, isn't it? Isn't it just like Harold? We could call him Harold for the moment. And it's historic for many reasons. But for me, when I think about a man coming from Gallows Bay to Frederiksted to have this event, this is very, very special. I often joke and I'm tickled when I hear the people from Frederiksted say I'm from the West. I'm from West, not the West. I'm from West. And so to allow Justice Willocks to have this program here is really, really special. And I think part of this is his reasons for this is to use us for his next history book. And it's okay. It's okay. And I too, in Harold's true fashion, must be brief and to the point. I'm taking the edit from the illustrious host this morning. But truly, Justice Willocks' tenure, as you've heard, at the Superior Court, he served as our presiding judge, as our administrative judge, and on any and every committee you asked him to serve on. He just willingly did everything he was asked of. He willingly handled every case type, from advice of rights to domestic violence to small claims to traffic to involuntary commitments to major felony cases, minor criminal cases, and to complex litigation cases. And he just was always willing to do any and everything for the Superior Court. His dedication to the court and to the justice system has been unwavering. In addition to his judicial duties, Justice Willocks served as a bouncing board. Employees, anyone could go to Justice Willocks and he would listen to you very calmly, very compassionately. He would give you guidance and support. And he provided and allowed for a rich and invigorating dialogue between and among judicial officers and other employees. And that is just so, so invaluable. So he is truly missed. He has the unique ability to maintain friendships with people from all walks of life and maintain respectful relationships, mutually respectful relationships. And he's able to perform his duties as a judicial officer with dignity and integrity. He is simply just a genuinely nice person who uses his skills to help others to improve their lives. He knows and loves the Virgin Islands community. And not just St. Croix, not just Christiansted and Fredericksted, from Coral Bay to Cruz Bay, from Red Hook to Fortuna, he loves the Virgin Islands, and that's what's so very special about him. He knows and loves the law and applies it fairly and logically. I consider him to be a masterfully skilled jurist and a humble, heroic leader. His ascension as Associate Justice of our Virgin Islands Supreme Court is fitting, is earned, and well-deserved. We at the Superior Court of the Virgin Islands wish him the very best on this new journey. And we appreciate that the Governor of the Virgin Islands and the Legislature of the Virgin Islands saw fit to appoint a man of his caliber and character to join the ranks of the Virgin Islands Supreme Court. And actually, he's the first male Crucian on the Virgin Islands Supreme Court. Another historical fact for his new book. Congratulations, Justice Willocks, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Judge. I don't think I've ever been called illustrious. Before I call up the next person, I want to appreciate the fact that you're doing this in Fredericksted. And protocol having been established, I must say, Harold, we appreciate this. From a man who lived in Fredericksted, thank you for bringing all these people here. And before you go home, buy some stuff in Fredericksted, okay? But don't get a big head now, because there's another man from East. You got his name on a building here. His name is Raymond Finch, and he'd be very proud of you too, okay? So stay humble, all right? Stay humble. At this time, I'd like to call up another good friend of mine. Everybody on this program is friends of mine, man. I love this. I'm going to call up Honorable Alfonso Andrews, Administrative Judge.
So, to all important souls, friends, well-wishers, family of Justice Willocks, good morning.
Good morning.
Some 50 years ago or so, Justice Willocks and I attended the same high school. Don't start doing the math, but we actually attended the best high school in the territory. No offense to those that went to St. Joseph, no offense to the chicken hawks that may be here or whatever. We could not. Everybody can't be that fortunate. So I remember Harold, as I know him, being a rather kind, friendly individual. In fact, he was also an avid athlete. He would play basketball, running up and down the court. In fact, Harold Willocks actually used to dunk a basketball. The operative word there is used to. Not saying it can't happen now, but just saying. And, you know, as years passed by, so he left the territory, went further his education in Maryland. As was indicated, he went to Morgan. I decided to go to the best college in the United States, which is the College of the Virgin Islands. No offense to any others, Morganites or whatever you might be. But that is what happened. And then sometime later, before we both came back, contributed our skills to the territory and so forth. And then it was in the early 1980s, we hooked up again, we were talking about where we go from here. And he said, "You going to law school?" "Yeah, I'm going to law school." I said, "Sure." He said, "You know, there's an endowment, scholarship at the Superior Court. You can apply for it to help pay your law school tuition." Now, at that time it was, I can't remember, it might have been $2,000 or $5,000, but I can tell you back in the 1980s, that was a lot of money. Law school was far less. It was nothing like what it costs now to go to law school. And as a side note, I think that I'm not sure who, the judiciary maybe, the College of the Virgin Islands, maybe government halls, maybe the Senate. Somebody or organization, I think, needs to find a way and means to incentivize Virgin Islands students to attend law school and to get them to come back. And hopefully that will help to address the rapidly declining presence of Virgin Islands students in the legal profession within the territory. And so, as fate would have it, we ended up into law school, and then we came back. And a few years later, we ended up again working the same place. As some of you may know, Justice Willocks actually worked in the Virgin Islands Department of Justice, Office of the Attorney General, working on the right side as a prosecutor. That didn't last too long. Within a year or two, he flipped and decided he wanted to defend criminals. But I'll tell you this, he was pretty good at it, and the rest is history. As you know, he served in the Office of the Public Defender. He rose through the ranks there and eventually ascended to the Superior Court bench. And I had the good fortune when I returned to the bench 3 years ago to meet him there, and he served as a source of a resource, a legal resource for me as well. He was a go-to person, always willing to help, and he was always able to, if not give an answer, point me in the right direction. So I say that to say that with his departure, the Superior Court in fact has suffered a loss. I've seen him in practice, whether on the bench or as a lawyer. I can tell you that he is an independent thinker. Justice Willocks thinks for himself, which is a very important characteristic of judges. You need to maintain the independence of the judiciary. And as has been stated, he's also prompt in making his decisions. Others would, well, let me research this a little bit more, let me think about this. Justice Willocks said, okay, boom, here's the decision. He's a hard worker. While he was at the Superior Court, as some has indicated before, he handled criminal cases, he handled civil cases, he handled complex litigation cases. And I can tell you, handling complex litigation cases is an arduous task. I know that because I do 95% of those sort of cases. Very voluminous, tedious. How he did it, I don't know. How he would take a 10-page calendar, maybe like a criminal calendar, like a Friday or something, and then by 1 or 2 o'clock, if not before, he's done. So I aspire to that sort of promptness as well. We'll see whether we get there or not. I would say that the Supreme Court is acquiring over 25 plus years of legal practice, and on top of that, another 13 years of judicial experience in Justice Willocks. So they're doing good. And so, to my friend and colleague, congratulations as you dispense justice in the Supreme Court of the Virgin Islands.
Thank you, thank you. At this time, before I call up the next speaker, having now heard a story about Harold basketball fame, I want to tell everybody here, Harold's probably the most helpful human being I have known. He's helped my wife, who's a classmate of his. He's helped my daughter. He's helped me on almost every occasion I went to him for any assistance, except for one that I can remember, and that's playing basketball. Harold was a good basketball player. He was a good rebounder. And I recall him rebounding the ball and asking Harold to pass it to me. And Harold decided, no, we got a better chance if I shoot this ball. He didn't give it up. The reason I talk about Harold and basketball is because the next speaker, her dad played basketball with Harold, Brow. And we had some lively conversations between Harold and Brow on the basketball court. And I like to quote another famous person, James Brown, for some of you all who don't remember. He had a song called The Big Payback. And so I figured, in introducing our next honorable guest, which is Honorable Yolande Brow Ross, that Harold was prepared for the big payback. I like
Protocol already having been established, I will simply say good morning to you all. And liberty already been taken, I will refer to you as Harold. I have known Harold for pretty much all of my life. I cannot think of a time when I did not know Harold. Through my father, and then we established our own relationship. In 2022, at my investiture, I claimed him publicly as a member of my tribe. And he grumbled, and he groaned, and he grunted, as he usually does when I say anything remotely nice about him, but then had the nerve to invite me to speak here today with the specific instruction to say something nice about him within 3 minutes. I will do my best because as of right now, I still don't quite know what I am going to say. But since George gave me the idea of the big payback, we'll see what comes out. When I saw the program for this ceremony, I looked at all of the names of the speakers, and I realized that we've all known him for a very long time. And I was struck by trying to figure out what I could say that they would not have said before me. And the only thing I could think of is this. I do believe I have the unique experience amongst the speakers of being a person that practiced before him during my tenure as a public defender. I was assigned to his courtroom, and I believe I practiced before him for almost 8 years, exclusively so. And so what I got to see was the Harold I knew as the person, the friend of my father, my friend, but also the judge, who I could not call Harold in the courtroom. It was definitely Your Honor. And what I discovered in looking and observing him on the bench is I always knew he was an intellectual. I always knew he was a teacher. But it is something interesting to watch all of that intellect and all of that desire to educate be tempered by compassion, by empathy, and by a sincere desire to assist, to help every person that appeared before him as a defendant. What I know about Harold is if you came in as a defendant and you did not have a high school diploma, by the time the case was done, you would have one. You had anger issues, you're going anger management. You have mental health issues, he will do his damnedest to ensure that you receive the services that you need in order to function and to be a contributing member of the society. And I did not know then, when I was before him practicing, because I had no clue, no inclination, that in 2022 I would become a magistrate judge. But what I do know is Judge Willocks, now Justice Willocks, was the role model that I did not know that I would have since I've become a magistrate myself. And I try to exemplify the same characteristics and traits that made me so proud to practice before him during my time as a public defender. Nice enough for you? All right, because after that, I really don't have much that I could say that would be suitable for the public. So I will simply say, in line with the speakers before me and the ones that come after me, congratulations. This honor is very much deserved. I am proud of you. I know if my dad was here, his chest would be puffed up beyond all recognition because he is so proud of you too.
Justice Willocks, that's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard Brown say, man. I'm gonna cry. Don't make me cry. Oh, my heart is touched. At this time, I'd like to call forward, representing the VI Bar Association, Attorney Christian Hendrickson.
Good morning. Protocol having been established, it is both an honor and a privilege to stand before you as a past president of the Virgin Islands Bar Association to celebrate the remarkable achievement of Justice Harold W.L. Willocks as he ascends to the position on the Superior Court of the Virgin Islands. This moment is a testament to a career marked by dedication, resilience, and an unwavering commitment to justice. We gather today not only to honor Justice Willocks for his well-earned appointment, but also to reflect on the journey that has brought him to the pinnacle of his legal career. One that many of us who have practiced in front of him has known to be nothing short of inspiring. Before he took his place on the bench, Justice Willocks was, in many ways, a symbol of the Virgin Islands indigent public defense system. During my time as a public defender, I remember hearing the stories. He was once the only public defender moving from courtroom to courtroom with a stack of files, always shifting from one case to the next. At that time, his calendar was his constant companion, and he became an expert at managing the rhythm of the courtrooms, the voices of those that he represented, to be sure, never forgotten. His diligence in ensuring that no case was left behind speaks to his profound sense of responsibility, not just as a public defender, but as an advocate for the very principle of equal justice. Because, as we know, the pursuit of justice does not wait for a moment's pause. Justice delayed is justice denied. To further reflect on my time as a public defender, two things stand out in my mind when I practiced before Judge Willocks. First, we would bring two public defenders to his calendar cause, whatever possible. He knew his cases so well that they moved rather swiftly. We needed one person to record the case notes and another person to speak on the matter. Second, Justice Willocks' calendar calls began precisely on time. If you were late, you would be given the opportunity to contribute to the Queen Louise Home for Children. His punctuality and respect for the court's time underscored his commitment to upholding the dignity of the judicial process. Beyond the courtroom, Justice Willocks, a true son of the soil, has been an invaluable contributor to the education and cultural awareness of the Virgin Islands community. As mentioned before, some of his well-known books are The Umbilical Cord, From Pre-Columbian to the Present, The Massacre in Paradise, The Untold Story of the Fountain Valley Massacre, and Over the Horizon, which are currently used as textbooks in the many public and private schools throughout the territory. In addition to his many books, Justice Willocks has also written numerous articles and papers that have enriched our cultural understanding and appreciation for the Virgin Islands' legal, cultural, and historical landscape. Throughout his career, Justice Willocks has exhibited a deep understanding of the legal system's potential for good. He believed in the power of advocacy and the potential for redemption and fairness. That belief, I would assume, drove him to rise from the role of public defender to become a judge and now a justice of the Virgin Islands Supreme Court. Justice Willocks is not a person of unnecessary pomp and circumstance. I remember once asking him to speak to a group of students, and his calm, unassuming responses stood in contrast to the more formal and expressive style I recall from my grandfather, Judge Alfonso Christian I, and his manner is a testament to the fact that law can be presided over in your own style and in your own way while still commanding respect. His appointment is not just of a personal achievement, it is a victory for the entire legal community. His extensive experience both as a trial lawyer and a judge, his understanding of our local customs and laws, his genuine compassion for the people of the Virgin Islands make him uniquely qualified to serve at this level. His steady hand and deep sense of fairness will be invaluable assets of the Supreme Court. We know his decisions will continue to reflect his commitment to justice, equity, and the rule of law. Justice Willocks' journey is a testament to the ideals we as members of the Virgin Islands Bar Association hold dear. He has shown us what it means to be committed to the law and to the people it serves. His rise is an inspiration to all of us, reminding us that hard work, integrity, and deep passion for justice can lead to great things. On behalf of the Virgin Islands Bar Association, we congratulate Justice Willocks. We thank you for your unwavering service to our community and the legal profession. We look forward to the many contributions you will undoubtedly continue to make in your new role. We stand with you in support as you continue to take on this new responsibility and continue to guide the course of the Virgin Islands with your wisdom, fairness, and integrity that have always defined your career. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I understand that the delegate, Plaskett, is not here, so we're going to now ask a representative for the legislative branch, Ms. Carla Joseph, to come forward.
A pleasant good day. It is indeed my honor and privilege to be here in Freedom City, St. Croix, to be a part and represent the Honorable Novell E. Francis Jr., President of the 35th Legislature of the Virgin Islands, and to be here as a member of the 35th Legislature and serve as its secretary on this auspicious occasion of the investiture of a man of the soil of St. Croix, the Honorable Harold Willocks. I will now read a prepared statement from our president as he gave it to me to bring you greetings at this auspicious moment. It reads, I am honored to bring greetings on behalf of the members of the 35th Legislature, many of whom have been here, if not for a competing perma-plaque presentation ceremony at the Senate today. Personally, I am both honored and proud to be here to witness the investiture of someone I consider an amazing public servant and a good friend. Whether you see Harold at the Bayside on a Saturday morning or on the bench presiding over a case, you get the authentic Harold Willocks. He is the analytical thinker and historian who wrote The Umbilical Cord, and straight talker who says what he means and means what he says. That's the Harold Willocks that I know, and that is the Harold Willocks who has always had the best interests of the Virgin Islands people at heart. He has been a staunch advocate for the mentally ill, and I relied on his wise counsel in reforming behavioral health care and standards with Act number 8688, now known as the Virgin Islands Behavioral Health Act. Today, the Behavioral Health Act reflects the compassion and the integrity that has defined Judge Willocks' entire career. Today, as we celebrate his ascension, a man of the soil, to the territory's highest bench, I am confident that as Judge Willocks, he will do what is necessary, what is required, and what is right in order to be a fierce, impartial advocate for justice, for the court, and for our territory. That is what we have been and what we have seen at every step during his career, and that is what we expect will continue to define his legacy of judicial service. I want to add my personal perspective because I knew Judge Willocks now Justice Willocks, when he was actually the chief public defender, and I manage a program for at-risk and indigent young people here in St. Croix, as well as in St. Thomas. I had an occasion to encounter Justice Willocks when we had an opportunity to interview some of our young people, indigent young people, who needed a second chance to earn their high school diploma. We heard a magistrate Brow mentioned it, and these are facts. He came and interviewed some of the young people so that they could enter the program I managed. And incidentally, a couple of days before, at our site, which was located at the John F. Kennedy housing community, someone was killed. So you know, I was there being baptized by the fire, and we were in the midst of a real battleground. But we were undeterred and kept focused on what the goal was, to transform and to make available the opportunity for our young people to earn a living, especially those who were touched by the judicial system. During his confirmation hearing at the 35th legislature, where I served as a member of the Rules and Judiciary Committee, I asked him, in my perspective, a very critical question, because it is how any community is tested. I asked him, how can we be able to render justice to the indigent of our community, those who are less fortunate? And his reply, he said, we must do and go above and beyond, because those are who are in need, and he has demonstrated it. So I want to congratulate you, Justice Willocks, and I also want to congratulate all of the justices for welcoming him, and thank you so kindly for this opportunity, and congratulations.
Thank you. In the theme, all of we are one family, I'm going to take the prerogative to ask, before I introduce the governor, the Lieutenant Governor Roach, to say a few words. Thank you.
Good morning. I want to say a special good morning to Governor Bryan, to Senator Carla Joseph, representing Senate President Nobel Francis, and I see Senator Donna Fred Gregory in the audience as well. I'm not sure if any other members of the 35th legislature are here. I want to say a special good morning to our illustrious judiciary, and I clerked with Judge Swan. Could you imagine how many years? I won't say when. And a special good morning to our Associate Justice, Harold Willocks, to his family, and to all the illustrious guests on the platform, and to you wonderful people of the Virgin Islands. I want to say a special good morning to the residents of Frederiksted, Freedom City, because freedom and justice began here, right? With the emancipation, and you can't separate freedom and justice, and I think this is such an appropriate place to have this ceremony this morning. In the past few weeks, I feel like I've been witnessing so many wonderful things happening in our judiciary. Just a couple of weeks ago, we were gathered at the legislature to honor Judge Vern Hodge, for whom the Superior Court of the Virgin Islands will be named. Judge Hodge made 91 this year, and it was awesome to see a man who had committed so much of his life to freedom and justice and to the law and its evolution in these wonderful islands. When Governor Bryan said that it was his intention to nominate Judge Willocks to the Supreme Court, I certainly was in agreement. because law can't really be separated from community. The people who we serve in all other capacities are the same people who come before us in law. And when Judge Willocks speaks, even as a prosecutor, when they talked about him coming over to the other side, but even as a prosecutor, I think he believed in the rehabilitation of people who are accused or even convicted of crime, because they remain a part of our community. They are our sisters and brothers and cousins and parents in some instances that require mercy and justice and compassion, and I couldn't think of a more appropriate person to name to the court. And if you read any of his writings, if you have any opportunity to engage Judge Willocks, you will know, even sometimes he's very brief, you will know that under that big facade is an incredible human being who is steeped in the culture and the heritage of these islands, and particularly that of St. Croix. And so we honor St. Croix today, we honor the ancestors today when we come together to see one amongst us be lifted up to another level. And I want to pray God's blessings on you as you continue in this work in which you have been engaged for so many decades, and God's blessings on your family as well, who will make the tremendous sacrifice to support you in this endeavor. And we, the people of the Virgin Islands, will be the beneficiaries of your good intellect, your compassion, your goodwill, and your continued good work on our behalf. God bless you.
Thank you, thank you. And without further ado, I'd like to invite our Governor of the Virgin Islands, Governor O'Brien.
Good morning. Good morning. Please be seated. Good morning, Justice Hodge and the other justices of the Supreme Court. Good morning, Lieutenant Governor Roach, Senate Representative Carla, Senator Carla Thomas, and other Senate. I always say Thomas, I'm still. Jose. Other judges, Chief Judge Deborah Watlington, and other judges, senators, dignitaries, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Whew, that was a lot. I also want to say a special good morning and welcome to the esteemed delegation from Gallows Bay back there, some of them by the gray truck back there. Welcome to Frederiksted. It is indeed good to be in Frederiksted, and you know, when I got this invitation, I was like, who bright idea it is to be in a hot bandstand on a Friday? And you learned it was, you know, Harold, I'll take liberty and say it himself. And I come here today as a governor, and sitting here, I have to say I'm so humbled by this experience, seriously. And I want us to really reflect on just how brilliant our judiciary is. And I'm not sucking up because I signed some legislation against them or anything, but I felt so proud to listen to them one after the next come up here, and I felt such a loss because politically and socially in our community, we don't get to hear their voices. And as the Virgin Islands goes through so much all the time, it would be good to have those voices, but we understand the nature of their jobs doesn't allow them to do that. But I want you to give them another round of applause, especially Justice Hodge, because he set the scene for how serious and how austere an occasion this is. It is fitting that we do it here. But I come today as governor, but also as Albert to celebrate my friend, because I really didn't know him all my life. And I really didn't know he was important until You know what I mean? You were just, like how we do in the Virgin Islands, especially, one thing about St. Croix, of many things that I love about St. Croix, one thing that I really love about St. Croix don't care what you have accomplished in your life or what you've done, is who you are as a person, right? That's what you're judged on. So, and anybody who knows Harold knows he's Harold, you know what I mean? It's just like, it's a whole lot in one word. But getting back to my story, I didn't know he was important until I was doing a book report with my youngest, Samaya, and it was on the umbilical cord, and she had a question that I couldn't answer, so I was like, let's call the guy who wrote the book. She was like, oh, you know the dude who wrote this book? I was like, yeah. And she was even more, I was, you know when you're a father, you want to impress your children, right? I was like, I got his cell phone number. And she was so amazed that she could actually speak to the person who wrote the book. Imagine the kind of pride that is as Virgin Islanders, as you see. And we rarely recognize the greatness of people among us. 20 books. We just know him as Harold. And from time I met him, he's always seemed, it was always peculiar. I was a little intimidated at first because it was just a stream of people coming, asking him questions. He wasn't a judge or anything. I think he was at the public defenders at the time, just asking him for advice and question. And the one thing you have to say about this man, son of the soil, is the humility is just crazy. You could meet him, and you will never know that he's a justice. And that is a blessing in itself. And when I thought about appointing him, and everybody at Tregenza, Lieutenant Governor Rhodes said it right, I thought about what our system is and who understands our people. Because it's good to understand the law, but you got to understand our people too. And this has been a heavy week for a lot of us because Tuesday didn't turn out too right. Nationally. I ain't trading no stones in the Virgin Islands. Tuesday didn't turn out so right. But today and through the week, I am just reflecting on the things that remind us that the people who serve this territory and the people who serve this nation, while we like to believe that they are tied to presidents or governors or people affiliation with parties, we really are tied to the principle behind this country, the fairness, the equal opportunity, the belief that people should have the right to liberty, life, and the pursuit of happiness. And even in this decision that we may not like that's happening at a national level, we have to trust that just as is here, while we may have our differences, we all believe that the people who represent us, like Harold, like Justice Hodge, or like Chief Judge Watlington, like Novell Francis, these people are firmly dubbed and believe in the Virgin Islands, the people of the Virgin Islands, our way of life. So today is a day we celebrate, and for me it's special because I'm naming somebody to the Supreme Court of the Virgin Islands. But it's even more special and symbolic because we're doing it here, and we're doing it for Harold. Congratulations, my brother. May God bless you and keep you on your way. Thank you.
At this time, we have a musical selection from the Superior Court Rising Star Youth Steel Band. Orchestra.
Thank you.